Hey everybody, Scoutcrafter here again, midweek Wednesday. Hope you're doing well. We have a good show planned for you today. A couple things that I picked out to try and work on today. I feel like doing some work on the bench, something kind of electrical. That's what I felt like doing. So I picked out a couple items. Let's get started right away. Okay, for today's first item that we're going to work on is this beautiful GE vintage home Sentry timer. This is nothing more than an automatic timer. You've seen them, a lot of them, the wall packs that go into the outlet, like the Intermatic makes, and they also have digital ones today, but I like the old mechanical ones, and these things were practically bulletproof. And it's very simple to operate here. This one here, you just set this to the time of day, so if it was at 9 o'clock at night, you would, this would be nighttime, the dark half, this would be daytime, so you would set it to, let's say 9 o'clock at night would be about there. And then what time you want the lights to go off. Let's say we want to go off at 2 in the morning. We move this over to 2. That's what time it'll go off. If we want it to come on at, let's say 7 o'clock. So we move this over to 7 o'clock, and that would come on at 7 o'clock and go off at 2 a.m. So very interesting. It would be on now if it was 9 o'clock. And how this works here on the side here, you see it says manual off, automatic, manual on. You would leave it for automatic, and that'll turn the lights on and off automatically. If you wanted the light on, let's say it was a thunderstorm was coming, it got dark, you want the light on, you just turn that down and turn the light on. If you wanted to turn it off, where you didn't want it coming on and off, you put it to the off switch. And the variable, that's something you don't usually see. What that does is it varies the time by a couple minutes, turning it on and off, so that if a burglar was watching your house and didn't, and said, well, does he have an automatic timer? It would vary it, so they wouldn't think it was a timer and that you were home. That's kind of to mimic that you're home. Has the instructions under here. You can see the instructions here. This is model 8136. Was made in USA, Bridgeport, Connecticut. A lot of stuff came out of Bridgeport, Connecticut. Of course, UL rating. I don't know if it works. I want to take it apart. What you would do is you would plug this into the wall and then plug your lamp into here. So I want to take it apart, make sure it works okay before I hook it up to the house. And let's see what's inside. Let's see what makes this baby work. Now, there are only 3 screws that hold this together. There are 2 screws here. They're the same size. And then there's this 3rd screw that's in the outlet there. You see that little... And this one here is a smaller screw. So that's the only 3 screws that hold this together. And then this front pulls out. Okay. Make sure the cord can go through. There we go. Look at this. This is the unit. All mechanical. You see here we have our little timing motor here, and there's the gears, all nylon gears. We want to lubricate, just put a drop of lubricant on them, but I just want to make sure that they're working. Isn't that interesting? Look at that, all mechanical. That little brass gear, you see that little brass gear in the middle there? That thing drives the entire gear train, which makes this operate. And and it has to have enough torque to turn this switch. Here's the switch over here. Over here, this is a switch, and you can see when I operate it like this, these copper, there you go. There's the here, and you see when you operate it like this, if I turn it to how each one of these will vary which one of those copper switches touch. So let's try this out. This is very interesting. Here's something very interesting. You see where the switch is here. They run a copper bus bar. That's like a copper piece of copper, solid copper, running to, this is where the plug would plug in, that you would plug in for your lamp. So I'll show you how that would go. See that? Watch closely. That fits right in between there. Look at that tight fit that gets in between there. Okay? You see that? That is tight. There is no play in there whatsoever. And that runs right up in here until you switch. Very interesting. And again, that gear train in there and how that works. Very exciting. Let's plug this in. Making sure, now you got to be careful here. When you have that box open, there's a lot of open copper. You don't want to touch anything and get shocked. Now, if ever you're working on something precarious like this and you're afraid of getting shocked, it's always a good idea to have a ground fault circuit interrupter, portable one. My buddy John Fix over at John Fix Tools, he sent me this one, and this thing is just great. I just hook it in line, and I don't have to worry if it should accidentally, if I should get shocked, this will trip right away. It's just like the circuit breaker you have in your bathroom. Here we go. You can see here, if you look very closely, look at the gear train. You can see it's moving. You see that one gear over there? It's moving ever so slowly. That's revolving very slow, and that's what drives this whole gear train. So it's working. I have that on automatic now. Now, if I have this hooked up here to this light, I'm going to turn the light on. You can see the light is on because we have it set. If you can see here, we have it set so that would be on now. Now I'm going to turn manual off. It should go off. Yep, the light went off. I'm going to turn it to manual on. The light should come on. Yes, the light's on. So this is working the way it should be. Now I'm going to spin this manually by hand, and that should shut off when this red comes to the top there. Okay, so it should shut off now. There it goes, shuts off. And as I go all the way around again, it should turn on when the green gets by time now. Okay, there we go. So this is totally operational. The only thing we want to do is, it's all clean. Just going to put a drop of oil on that gear train. Not that it really needs it. They revolve so slow, and they're nylon gears, but I always like to put a drop of oil on anything that spins. This will be good for another 50 years. Very interesting, isn't it? Now, to lubricate this gear train, I'm going to be using Lucas fishing reel oil, and this is a really handy oil. It's a mineral oil that's highly refined, and it comes in handy for a whole bunch of things. Okay, it's all back together. Let's double check. Yes, it works. Now, the last thing I want to do is I want to see how much wattage this uses, that little motor, how many watts this uses when it's just operating, when it's just spinning that little motor in there. Okay, we plugged it into a kilowatt here. You can see I have 119 volts coming into the house. 118, 119. Let's hit wattage and see how much it's using. 1 watt. It says 0, and then it goes to 1, 0. It toggles between 1 and 0. So that's probably using about a half a watt, because this here, I think, only goes down to 1. So it's very, very low draw on here. And again, it's bulletproof. This thing's got to be 35 years old. What do you think? Okay, next up, we got a little bit of a restoration of something I picked. This is a vintage hair dryer. I don't know when, 40s, 50s? What? This is a model 559.8316. You can see it's UL listed. It's a Kenmore. Sears made them. And you can see it's got a little surface rust on there, whatever. But what do you think? Think that we can get this into being nice? And first of all, let's plug it in, see if it works before we even start, right? Okay, I plugged it in. It's got a wood handle, which is nice. You don't have to worry about shock, right? Let's hit the on. Okay, it works. It sounds a little groggly. Let's take it apart. See what we can do with this. Okay, 2 screws holds this little cover, this little guard on the front, and then there are 2 additional screws over here. They're all the same size screws around the side. This will lift off here. Okay, this is just a cover, and look at the inside. How cool is that? Look at this. It's only a fan on a motor, a small little motor, a fan, and there's a heating coil. That's it. This is probably asbestos. November, oh wait, there's a date on here. November 2nd, 1950, and it, I'm sorry, it was off camera. November 2nd, 1950, can you see that? Damn, is it, I think it's 57 maybe. All right, 57? Look at that, look at that fan. That is so funny. How cool is that? Okay, let's take these nuts off here. Take this part off. Now, what do I always tell you? Anytime you get to use a nut driver is a good day, and sure enough, it's a good day. These paid for themselves over the years, okay? Boy, I can imagine being an appliance repairman back in the day, you know, when everything was just simple and you could actually take things apart. Must have been a beautiful thing back in the day. Okay, so here we go. We got washers too behind it there, so we got to be careful not to lose them. And then this here, looks like there's metal tabs here that are bent over. We got to unbend them to pull this thing up. Oh yeah, and look at that. There's a nut with a split to take this fan blade off. Now this is pretty ingenious. What I did is I put my pliers on here and I screwed the shaft, because that little split in there, and I screwed it to loosen up the nut. The nut loosens up. You see here? It's loose. And then when it comes off the shaft, this is pretty cool. There's a spacer behind it. Okay, see that spacer? You gotta take that spacer off. So they got a nut, a spacer, and watch this. This is really interesting. See this fan blade? Check out the shaft. It fits around the shaft. Look at that. Look how that was invented, that this way it couldn't spin on the shaft. It's just one piece of sheet metal. You could easily fabricate this, and it fits over the shaft and into the shaft. Isn't that amazing? Now to bend these tabs back, you might think getting a screwdriver on there, but you can't, because what are you going to do? You're going to wedge against here, you're going to bend this out. Best thing to do is to get a pair of flat nose pliers, like these vintage pliers, just for this purpose. And you're going to get, I'm going to show you here, you're going to get just a bite on there, a slight bite. Okay, when you get that bite like this, you're going to pull this back a little bit, and then each time you're going to pull back a little bit more, release, pull back, release, and keep doing it until it straightens out just like that. Don't try and do it in one shot. You got to grab it and work it back on all four. Once they're straightened out, you can pull that straight out like this, and you can see this gives you access to the motor. Now usually this bearing, these are little standoffs. You see here? Couple of standoffs on each one. You got to be careful you don't lose them, or you'll be fabricating your own. And then I believe this whole armature will lift out. Okay, you got to be careful and be gentle with it, but it should lift right out of here. Now there we go. You see that? There we go. Now that gives you access to here to clean it, to lubricate it. This is a brushless motor. That's why I don't have a lot of torque. But you see, there's the bearing over there that's got to be oiled. And we'll clean it, we'll lubricate it, and we'll get it back together. Now, if you had to replace or service the motor, you would just pull this out like this, and there's wire nuts in there that you could take that out. Okay, we hooked it up, we put everything back, lubricated everything in the shaft and whatnot, but now I want to show you, these are nichrome resistant wire, just like that was in the toaster and things like that. They just heat up. So you turn the fan on, okay? Then you turn the heater on, and you wait for that to warm up. And you'll see it starting to glow red or orange. You can see it starting to glow orange in the front. There we go. That's what gave you heat. Shut it off, let it cool down. Not a very powerful motor. And the switches are... Okay, let's finish cleaning this up. The handle's a little bit loose. We're going to address that. But it's coming along good. We've been working a lot of steel wool, elbow grease to get the case. We're almost there, but the handle was a little bit loose. You see that handle was loose here? And that's because the wood shrinks over the years, and there's nothing you can really do about it. But one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a small piece of masking tape. This is a special high stick masking tape. I'm going to wrap a piece around there and then wedge it in, and hopefully this will tighten up because it was very loose. Let me show you. Okay, we wrapped a piece around about a 1/16 of an inch above the shoulder there. We're going to push these edges down here first. Okay, like that, just like you're wrapping a gift almost. Push this down, and then this here. And that should give us enough thickness that when we put this in here, yeah, see, it's much thicker, much stronger. And now we just put the screw back in. Now, you know my favorite part. Remember what this old Kenmore hairdryer looked like before we started? And we're calling this project done. What do you think about this before and after? I know you all like a good before and after. This one I think is came out really nice, huh? What do you think? Got the case back. Over here in the front was a little tough because I had to take off some of the chrome plating, but everything else came out real nice. Waxed it. The handle's nice and fixed now. It's tight. What do you say we plug it in and check out some of the specifications, like how much wattage it uses and how hot it gets? Okay, we have 118 volts coming into the house. Let's hit wattage. We got 0. Let's turn it on. This is not with the temperature. This is just cold. You can hear it. Still rumbling away. Even though I oiled the bearings. It's using 42 watts. Low power motor. 42 watts. Let's hit the temperature. Watch the wattage now. On. Okay, we got 240 watts about, right? 240 watts. It's getting warmer. And let's take a temperature reading from the front. Okay, so there we go. Very interesting, huh? Not a lot of wind power. 162 degrees. Not a lot of heat. And you can see here, it's an amazing thing, huh? How much these have changed. Not many things have gotten much better over time, but I think hairdryers definitely have. Hairdryers are much, much better than they were. Okay, so in closing, special announcement. This Saturday, January 17th, is the Jacktown Snow Show. It's their winter show. You know, I used to go a lot, but I don't have snow tires on my vehicle anymore, and if it snows, I don't go near it. But who knows? The weather is supposed to have a good turnout if it's nice. If it's not snowing, you know how that works. And I've been there when it snowed. What do you think about today's items? Boy, those vintage timers, they'll go for another 50 years. That hairdryer, I don't know. Maybe if you're drying kids' hair, it's not very hot and it's not very strong. But they do last, right? Kenmore, 1957. Anyway, thanks so much for tuning in. Hope you have a great day. We will see you again on Friday. Take care now. Bye-bye.